Pastor Derek King, who's been very active in the pro-life struggle in the Pietermaritzburg area, has been involved in the closing down of 3 abortion clinics in that area, and also I think also an escort agency. So I think that's something that we really need to learn about, because we haven't tackled things like that in Cape Town yet. And I think we can really try and draw on his experience there. And then we've got Pete Buerter, who's been studying the whole issue of homosexuality from a biblical perspective and trying to restore that biblical perspective within the context of the church, which is a big struggle that we need to do, because if the church is confused, then they can't be salt and light in society. And so to help people to get solid in their thinking is a really important work. So the way we're going to structure this meeting is we're going to have 45 minutes for the first speaker, of which he'll have up to half an hour to talk, and then we're going to have 15 minutes of questions after that. I'll chair the question and answer session. And then after that we'll have a short break. We've cut a little bit into the break by starting a few minutes late. And then we will have our second speaker, Pete Buerter, also for 45 minutes on the homosexual issue.
Maybe just touch on a few things, but I've actually asked my wife to deal with some of the practical issues that we've had to face up to in targeting abortion clinics and so on. But maybe just to say we're so thankful to be here and to meet other pro-life organizations. Congratulations for what you're doing for life, and may God bless you for that. Any effort, no matter how small it is something that encourages our hearts and I believe God's heart. And especially the medical students that are studying at varsity, still preparing to go into the medical profession. And those in the political arena, like Janine and Phil Rosenthal, with his many emails he's sending out to journalists and informing and educating. And we say thank you. We're so glad also. I've just met 2 of our elder people here who are involved in the pro-life organization from the Catholic Church. Is that correct? We have had lovely opportunities to work together with Cardinal Napier and the work they're doing there in Natal. And we respect what they're doing. But just if I could just say, share with you how it started in Pietermaritzburg with the 3 abortion clinics that closed down. One night I was woken up with the cry of babies. And at that time my wife we just had our second child, Selwyn. Our children have grown up outside abortion clinics with the pro-life work we're doing. But that night, I thought it was him crying, because I just heard the cry of a baby. And I'm not a person who's quite emotional, and I thought, well, maybe I've eaten too many mealies or something, But I literally got out of the bed and I went to check Selwyn's cot to see if he's hurt or something, and it wasn't that. And I went back to bed and I heard the cry again. And a voice came to me saying, the voice of your brother cries out to me. Taken from the Old Testament, where, who was it? I'm trying to think of. Cain killing Abel, that's right. The voice of your brother. His blood cries out to the heavens. And the Lord spoke to me about the babies that were being murdered in South Africa. It was just after the passing of the law. And it wasn't long afterwards, a few days, where we went and we saw the first billboard out, 25 babies killed in Pietermaritzburg, and then the next day it was 40-something, if I'm correct. And that's how it started. God gave us a burden. And I just felt I'd like to say this before Myrna shares some practical issues with you. That's how it starts. It starts with a man with a burden. A woman who's got the burden on his heart. In the Old Testament, the Bible says that God would raise up people who have that mark on their foreheads. The mark that they mourn over the crime and immorality and the sins of Israel. And if we have that mark on us, that we are mourning over abortion, mourning over homosexuality, I believe there's hope for South Africa. I believe there's hope. I believe God can do something. And so with that, maybe I'll just hand over to Myrna, who can share some practical things with you. I'm sure you would like to know what more can we do on this issue.
The pro-life issue that we are involved in. And because of this burden that we had for the unborn and those who are being aborted, we thought we had to do something. And speaking to friends and to the people in the community in which we were living, we saw the need, or we realized that they didn't feel as we felt. Yes, abortion was wrong, but we'll pray. Now, by that I don't mean there's nothing wrong with prayer. For us, we felt we had to pray, but we also had to do something. And we learned step by step how to go about, without anybody teaching us, it was through trial and error, how to go about organizing a legal protest, a legal prayer protest. And we went to our municipality, who then directed us to the civil protection, and that's the department we work with in Pietermaritzburg, to get legal permission from them, and then to the police, and then we go and picket. And of course there are rules that we have got to abide by, which we strictly follow. Don't stop people going into the clinic. Also, so many meters away from the front door. And as law-abiding citizens, we stick to those rules that are necessary. Basically, our statement is abortion kills babies. It's simple. The first clinic we targeted was a Nightingale family planning clinic. Even though it was Nightingale, after Florence Nightingale, who was saving lives, they were killing babies there. On the first day we decided to go and picket that outside the clinic, we were actually horrified. It wasn't black bags in those at the beginning of the abortion clinic business there in Maritzburg. It was boxes the sizes of stoves. Now they would, I suppose it was lined with plastic, and then they would fill the medical waste, so they say, into this box, and they would come out of the front door and into the Sanumed lorry, and we'd watch these boxes coming out. That was enough to make the hair, quite hairy, stand up on your arms. I've never experienced anything like that in my entire life. And we realized one thing there, starting outside the Nightingale Family Planning Clinic, was that you don't need numbers. You need people who have got the vision, and people who have got the heart, and people who feel called to do that kind of work. Obviously, we're not all called to stand on the side of the pavement. There are those who work in offices promoting the same kind of issue. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this is the line that we took, and we experienced terrible opposition from the people inside the clinic. Even though we had met them before, we did, on numerous occasions, they'd call us into the clinic to chat to us, and to try and persuade us to stop. But we even arranged through one or two of the companies to offer one of those nurses, or some of the nurses, there were 2 nurses running the clinic, whoever was willing for another job. It wasn't that we were trying to put them out of work, but we were going to offer them an alternative form of work. And we stood there some days, a few, 5, some days 25, some days 105 outside the clinic. But I think God gave us the strength, because I can only say it's strength from heaven, that we stood there through the sunshine with sun hats and through the rain with our umbrellas. If I could say, by the way, as Derek mentioned, our little son was still tiny when we started. He grew up out of the clinic, and he even learned how to potty trained him in the boot of our car. And so you ask our son and daughter anything about abortion. Yes, there is something like a vacuum cleaner. It's 25 times stronger, do you know? And because they've also learned, and we've taught them the value of a life in God's eyes. And the clinic eventually closed because the business just literally dwindled to naught. And the day they moved out, we were there with our cameras to take photos, and out walks a doctor, and he grabs the camera from Derek and smashes it on the floor. He says, "You'll never publish a photo of me moving out of this clinic." And of course we didn't get to do it because the whole camera was damaged.
Sorry, the sad thing was he didn't know we had a Christian video in the whole scene of him attacking us. So we had it on film.
And that was the end of Nightingale Family Planning Clinic, and wow, we thought we had accomplished much. Only for Nightingale to pop up again in another street, but called Nightingale Comprehensive Health Care Clinic. So the business went under, so they had to re-register and under a different name. And we thought, wow, do we have to start again? Which we did, because we still had the vision. Babies could not be murdered in Pietermaritzburg. And we took to the streets, and we found that this time round it was easier to get other Christians and pro-life workers involved. Ministers from church groups came to share a short devotion. Maybe for 10 minutes they would come, and they'd come with a group of their people. Because by now it had become public knowledge that there were Christians who did not want abortions taking place in Pietermaritzburg. And that abortion clinic was next door to a bottle store. And I can tell you that the bottle store owner continually supplied us with cold drinks because it got very hot outside that clinic. And there again, the lawyer that this comprehensive health clinic used came out to speak to us one day, and they were looking to take us to court because we are stopping business. And after we consulted our lawyers, we realized there was absolutely nothing we were doing that was against the law. So no matter which angle they tried and to attack us from, we were law-abiding citizens standing for what we believe. And so nothing came of that, and eventually it took a shorter space of time to close the second clinic, because I think when they started they weren't as financially sound as they should have been after closing down the previous clinic. And there again, some days 5, some days 10, some days 25, some days 105, and sometimes possibly a little more. Our slogans were still "Abortion kills babies." And after a short while, that clinic closed. And the funny thing about that, the clinic, the building in which that clinic was housed, then became a mortuary. And we'd stop by there and laugh because, look what's happened now. The walls are even screaming out, the empty brick building. And when we thought we had conquered again, Maurice Stopes was then in action. But before the end of Nightingale, Maurice Stopes the second Nightingale, Maurice Stopes had opened. So now we'd had to divide our time between Maurice Stopes clinic, which was international, and Nightingale. It was quite a bit of a juggle, but some days we all went to the one and we all went to the other, and sometimes we split. And some days we'd have a major protest on a Saturday outside the one, and we'd alternate. It just requires a bit of planning and just to see how you can handle things and how many. And one thing I've learned, and I can't enforce enough, is that numbers do not matter. Don't think because I haven't got a whole youth group or a whole church group or a whole ladies group that, what difference will I make? The only thing that matters is that God is on your side, one, and two is that you've got the will to go on, to persevere, because you know what you're fighting for. And after the closing of Nightingale, second Nightingale, we were thankful enough to focus our time on Maury Stokes and a clinic which we did. Outside Maury Stokes clinic, by then the abortion protest, pro-life protest had mounted to such a peak in Pietermaritzburg that Tom, Dick and Harry wanted to be there because they could now see success. And passers-by would stop and join in, give me a placard and they would join in. We developed a very good relationship with the nursing staff at the Maury Stokes clinic as well. We gave them our pro-life literature, some of which we got from Pro-Life South Africa. Miriam Kane's book at that time, Fight for Life. We armed, wherever we went and wherever we protested, we made sure the nursing staff and the doctors inside were armed with enough pro-life literature which we supplied. We were free to open debates with them. When we targeted Maury Stokes faithfully. And we realized then after a couple of months, the number of people going into the clinic diminished. And then the nurses started to get nasty. Now when money stops coming in, you start seeing another side to the picture. And then you realize that this is just a money-making process, which we were told. There was a lady who came and said to us, they offered, I wasn't counselled. She said, as soon as I walked in the clinic, they said, do you want an abortion? This is the amount of money you have to pay. And so the issue of the mother and the baby was totally excluded. You come with your money, we'll get rid of this
problem.
The problem. Not the baby, not the fetus, not the unborn child, the problem. And so Maury Stokes clinic closed as well after perseverance. That was the end of 3 clinics in Pietermaritzburg. There was another small clinic that opened which we targeted as well after that, and that one closed. I do believe it's perseverance and not numbers that can close an abortion clinic, because God is on our side.
If I could just say something, amongst, especially, we work a lot amongst the rural areas, and especially amongst the Zulus. A funeral is a very, very big thing amongst the Zulu people. You don't just cremate a person, In the white countries now, especially the Western, cremation takes place and so on. But amongst the Zulus, you must have a proper burial. And for our people, it was a shocking thing that babies were just being taken out of the clinic, boxes, it was sometimes 5 boxes, and just taken to be incinerated, burnt. And so, as a result, the Zulu population they actually chose a hymn. I think maybe some of us know it's Safe in the Arms of Jesus. Do you know that hymn? Safe in the Arms of Jesus. A funeral hymn. That when the boxes would be taken out of the clinic, all the churches would go on their knees and sing this funeral hymn. Safe in the arms of... And it was a moving thing. I tell you, you even had the nurses on their knees that did the abortions. So God used many angles to touch people's hearts. And Cape Town is different, the culture is different here, but it's the same God that can orchestrate, what do you say? Orchestrate how we should do it. I don't know if there's still time for questions?
Yeah, there's plenty.
For this month, on a Saturday for between 11 and 12 to the Morris clinic, but it's fairly quiet on that Saturday. Did you go during the week or any particular time of the day, an hour? Or?
We actually, sorry, did you say?
We were there every day.
You were there every day.
We got women's prayer groups, Not everyone wants to protest, but if you say come and pray, they'll come. And so women's prayer groups would come and just do it and hold a placard at the same time. But we found we had to use a strategy, because if they knew you were coming on a Saturday, they would tell their customers to come on Mondays, you know. So we'd surprise them. We get legal permission for all the days of the month. And then we would just see their strategy and plan around it. And that's what sort of confounded the work they were doing. But we did on Saturdays, for example, when everyone was available. Sometimes, eventually, as Myrna said, it grew in momentum. Sometimes we had 500 people on a Saturday coming. So Saturdays were the bigger groups.
I think if your aim is to stop the people going into the clinic, that's good. But your aim is also to educate the public. It's public awareness. Because come voting time, they must know abortion kills babies. You see, so you must also see what is my aim this week or this month, what do I want to achieve? Is it public awareness? Possibly because it might be difficult for you now to get people in the week. Well, then I'm going to aim for big meetings on a Saturday, big protests, pre-protests outside the clinics. And then in the week, smaller groups. But you just have to, as you see, you can see what the market's like and then try and work around it.
Sorry, can I just say, in terms of the structure of the meeting, before you speak, you could give your name, and if you are from an organization.
If you had a particular strategy, what you would say to people that were entering and exiting the abortories. Did you have a way of I mean, obviously you were still holding up your placards and things, but did you ever try and address them?
One thing you cannot do is stop them while they're going into the clinic. Then you are in serious trouble, and we don't want to be in serious trouble. We want to save lives. And if you're out there protesting, you can see who are the ones wanting to come in. There are some who are brazen enough that just march up and into the clinic and shout at you. There are some who you see they'll be walking up and down or going around the block with their moms, and then the person will jump perhaps out of the car and stand a distance and watch. And then you maybe because they are not directly in front of the clinic, they're not coming in, they're watching this from a distance and they want to come in, then you could perhaps, one person without a placard can go up to them and just start a conversation. And then you would get to know what that person wants to do, and in that way you can help. You would see, but definitely you can't do it and yank the person as they're going up the ramp to the clinic or whatever.
One of the strategies we did use, we had a pregnancy crisis centre not far from Maurice Stopes, and they came with a pamphlet. If you're saying something, if you're in a crisis, contact Pregnancy Crisis Centre. And we had people handing those out. And so often we'd find, not all, but some would come back and say, yes, we'd like to know more. And then we'd set up a counselling session for them, maybe at a tea restaurant or something where we could talk. And but sometimes even there on the street, they'd come and want to talk and ask, is there an alternative to abortion? And then we could offer them the alternate, You'd find also, and I'm sure maybe you found it in your work already, that every person has this inner conscience that it's not the right thing to do. And if you just approach them, not only the mother of the child, but the father, bringing her in, and you say, hey, Father, Dad, that baby's going to have maybe your color eyes, and he's going to look like you, Dad. That it touches any human being with a conscience, and just that will maybe tell them, maybe they'll go and rethink the whole issue then. They've said that many men are led to alcohol and even suicide after their wife or girlfriend has an abortion. So there's many angles, but we did find that one-to-one talking helps although as Myrna says, one can't literally stop them from going in, but one can really deter them having the abortion.
And what I would suggest is perhaps if there are a group of people who are protesting, out of that group, maybe somebody who is more trained in the pro-life issues and how to counsel and the facts of development of a baby, besides you being there with a placard or whatever, you appoint one or two to be lookouts to see which are the girls or the ladies wanting to come in, which are the men. Sometimes in situations that we found, the men would come in first to go in, to see what it's like, if everybody's going to stop them to investigate, something about the protest from the nursing staff inside. Now, if you can appoint one or two as lookouts, you'd know who to target and which ones to grab, to start speaking to before they get near the clinic.
My name is Matthew, I'm from UCT Students for Life. My question is, in terms of the doctors and the nurses that you were targeting, did you find that those who spoke back to you, were they really in favor of abortion, or were they just looking at this as a job or a way of helping the people who are actually going there, a way of providing a service to the public?
Some of them thought they were providing a good service to the public, while others definitely were troubled by their consciences. One, a nurse in particular, at the first Nightingale clinic, after it closed, she didn't go into the second clinic. She contacted us somehow to say, I've changed my profession, I'm now into, I forgot.
Pro-life work, yeah.
She was actually into pro-life work from the nursing field. She had stopped doing abortions. And at one of our other protests, she came to show us her baby. She did admit that she could not live a day knowing how many babies she's helped to kill.
Yeah.
There are others who are terribly troubled. If I think of the one nurse in particular, she came out to us from the Maury Stobbs clinic, and I won't mention the denomination, she said, my father is a minister, and this is what I'm doing. These people are troubled. I don't think there are any of them who don't have consciences. They know very well, because they've got to count how many legs, how many arms after that abortion, how many ears, how many eyes. They can see that it's a life, and nobody, I don't believe anybody, can take a life and go to bed soundly at night.
On the other hand, sad to say, there are those in the medical profession who are not doing it fighting for life, as in the oath they've taken that they'll fight for life whatever. We've met up with doctors and nurses that really are violent and were even physically, as we have been, physically attacked because we prevented their business, and that they were in it just for business and for money's sake. They didn't think anything wrong of killing babies. They told us, and I think if they could get their hands onto us, they would have, as some of them. So you do get the two groups, but I think a person like that one really needs to pray for, and that's why we would have prayer meetings. We'd get on our knees and pray for them. But most of them, if you just showed them what the medical facts about the baby and when it's born and when the heart starts beating and so on, most of them were very sympathetic, as Myrna said, that they even actually wanted to leave the clinics.
Perhaps something that would encourage people here in Cape Town. Just over a year ago, we went with two friends to Maury Stobbs in Bree Street early on a Saturday morning, so we got there before the nurses, which always freaks them out when they see us there, when they arrive. But we spent 2 hours or so there, and we were about to leave when a lovely young couple who walked into the clinic walked out and said, "You persuaded us, we're not going to have an abortion." It was just fantastic to see that. What I want to ask is, we know that there are risks. I know, it was fantastic. I was reminded when you were talking and thinking, you know, just that is a good reason to go and do that.
Yeah.
One of the things we know about abortion is that there are risks involved, and often you do get ruthless practitioners causing a lot of damage to women as they practice abortions. Were you able to pick up any of these post-abortive women and get them to follow that up and perhaps hold these doctors and nurses liable for reckless actions?
It wasn't easy. I can think of one case in particular. It happened outside the first Nightingale clinic. This lady had come for. We didn't witness the day she came for the abortion, but we did notice she came back in. She went in, with a gentleman, which we assume it was her husband, and she wasn't looking very terribly strong. She was actually leaning onto him, and you had to help her in. But we saw them coming from a distance because they didn't park near the clinic for some reason. I think they were still contemplating and plucking up the courage to go in while we were outside. But before, somebody noticed them and walked up to them, and this man said to us, "If you come and open your mouth once to us, I will shoot you." So there, we just left it, because he could take us up on legal matters, because we are stopping him now, we are pestering him, and we are protesting. We do know he's going into the clinic. We dropped it then, and we did inquire from the nurses, and of course they refused to give us any information as to where they came from, because we thought if we could just know, we would follow these people. And we were hoping at that stage to plead on the touch the heart of the softer of those two nurses I spoke about earlier. But of course, we didn't get any information. It was very rare. I don't remember ever another case actually of us witnessing something like that outside a clinic. I don't know if they scheduled those appointments for other times, but I do know at one or two of the clinics there were back entrances, and you could drive in and then go in through the back door. So it's possible that when they follow up, if they did go in for any complications, or they would do it that way. But we never noticed another case of something.
Is that something to keep an eye on?
There was a case that we did have of a botched abortion. This lady eventually ended up at Gray's Hospital, and Gray's Hospital just about saved her life. She was very, very physically injured after the abortion, and besides that, the baby was far huger than, I don't know what's the legal weeks now. Yeah, far older than that. Unfortunately, Nightingale removed all evidence of it. I don't know if they bribed her or paid her with money, because we were going to take that out forward as a legal argument with Doctors for Life. But it was all just lulled. We couldn't even get evidence from Gray's Hospital at the end of it. But definitely abortion does harm to babies. We counseled someone also before she died. And she cried, and she said the reason for me turning to alcohol and the way she ended her life was because she was in an abortion clinic. They removed the baby and then found out it was twins. They thought it was twins. They thought it was one, but it ended up triplets. And she said she saw them crushing the bodies of the heads of these triplets, and it led to hallucinations. She every day of that month of the year, she would have dreams and visions of these babies, hearing them cry as they were killed, and as a result, she had a premature death, but fortunately, by God's grace, we could lead her to Christ. She could be forgiven of her sin. And she asked us, we actually buried her, she asked us please to tell her story wherever we go. That this was the marks of abortion that led her to this kind of life, and of alcohol, and then eventually she died. I think she died at the age of about 28. But she couldn't get that out of her mind.
She actually died of AIDS because after that she became very promiscuous. And one thing led to another. It was just a downward spiral for her. And we buried her. Buried her. She died of AIDS.
About using, these gory pictures and so on outside the abortion clinic. Did you do that? Or don't you think that's the case?
We did it.
Different people have different views.
I was just wondering.
But we did keep one or two of them. I think we've got some of them. Please feel free if you'd like to see some of the history of it. There are photos of it. It does give people a view of what actually takes place in an abortion. How the body is torn apart and so on. The body is thrown into rubbish bins. But it's just up to the individual. If you feel free to, you don't have to use those photos.
The thing is, abortion is violent. The result is a nasty piece of flesh, no longer a human being. It's bruised, it's torn apart, it's damaged. Why must we hide the truth? Abortion, that is what abortion does. That is what the baby looks like. It's not a blob, it's a human being. There are toes, there are fingers. And if we're going to say abortion kills babies, which it does, and make it sound nice, but I personally don't see anything wrong in showing the public this is what the murdered baby looks like.
Sometimes we'd use coffins even. At the end of this whole thing, we presented a coffin. We had two young men dressed as undertakers, and we marched through the city with all the pro-life organizations. We stopped every 100 meters, and a minister would say, do a prayer or say something, and then we arranged that the Minister of Health should receive, he didn't know he was going to do it, receive the coffin with 13,000 signatures against abortion on it. And so he waited there until we all arrived with the float. We had a lorry with crosses on it to represent so many babies. And then the undertakers presented him with it. And the newspapers had the photo of the General Secretary of Health holding this coffin, You can use strategy. Phil Rosenthal actually phoned us sometimes and gave us ideas. The one time we used popular people like, what if Madiba was aborted? Now some people said, well, he should have been aborted. Others hooted and said, yes, that's true. What if he was? There wouldn't have been democracy. Or what if a famous cricketer, John T. Rhodes, was aborted, Use different strategy, use different billboards. It just depends on you. And then, of course, these photos, that's a good method also. But one can just change strategy and be in prayer about it to catch the public eye.
Just about a week ago, we were up in Akopo area, that's near Anderburg. And there's lots of farmers. 2 weeks ago, sorry. And we also had a pro-life demonstration, and it was also in a float, a procession. Because they are farmers, we use the environmentalist theme. So the environment is important, human babies even more. And we had a forest on a lorry, and we draped the lorry with hessian, and we had those placards. And then we had some environmentalists. There's nothing wrong with them, but the environment is much more important than humans. And save the yellowwood, and save that is called blue swallow country. Save the blue swallow and this, and then the next lot of protesters came, who will save the human babies? Who will save the human babies? And that was about 2 weeks ago. We pick out different themes and do it like that. We've also had one where we dressed up as animals. It was Save the Baby Humans. And the animals were the Lion King and all that kind of thing. Was on the lorry in the jungle, and every so often the lion would roar, and then the recording would come on where we'd play the facts about abortion, the medical facts, with the post-abortion syndrome and the development of a baby. And those are the kind of things we don't only stand outside clinics. We realize we've got to make the public aware, and that abortion kills babies.
It would be interesting in a way to find out what is the an investigation into disposal procedures, just to bring to the public's attention what happens. Where are these? Where does the incineration take place?
We did follow that. At that time, I think it was Sanumed. They are now another company. What is it? Something.
Is that a crematorium? Or?
No, it's a company that they collect all medical waste from hospitals. So it doesn't only mean aborted babies. Anything can go. Your needles that need to be incinerated.
Amputations.
Anything. And we did follow the company. We did. We found out where they were
incinerated.
Yes, and it was done in a legal, up to health standards at that time.
Yes.
Of course, we haven't done it recently, so we, as you know, clinics now in Pietermaritzburg. But it would be interesting perhaps to follow Laurie again and find out.
It's a project which should be also. How do we know that the paperwork? Is being complied with at the Stopes Clinic, and which local government or quasi-government authority oversees it, and who gets the forms and whatever. It would be very interesting if we had a sort of an investigative journalist to find it out as a project.
Yeah, I mean there is that to it that. If that's not done properly, I mean, not that we agree with them destroying our babies, we do know that witchcraft is involved with baby human parts and so on. And as it is overseas, they use certain parts of the body for perfumes, and so it would be good to do investigation on this. But amazing with Sanumed, the chief director, when he was challenged, he was a pro-lifer. He said he just thought this is just a fetus that's been destroyed. He didn't even realize it's a baby that's been killed. So.
And this is where I heard from Phil early on that Sally, sorry. While we are sort of on the pavements, you are in the universities and at educating people. There are many who don't know the basic things. And that Jane and John is also that you publish is a very good, an informative brochure to hand out at meetings like that. And I think besides the picketing, we've got to, on these model issues generally, we've got to educate the people.